Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another installment in our 2024 preseason power rankings. Where today we're moving to our sixth ranked team, the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that disappointed last year and it kind of wasn't their fault. They just had to deal with a lot of injury issues, especially to their best player. And now I think people are kind of starting to forget just how good this Bengals team can be and what the ceiling of this team is, which we'll get into shortly. But first off, Pat, how you doing? And what do you have to say about this Bengals team before we get into it?
I mean, the main thing that I wanted to say was exactly what you just said, right? This is a team that feels like it has been forgotten about because their best player got injured last year. Because their best player got injured last year, they weren't overly great, overly threatening last year, and because I think people are forgetting, the reality is this is one of the best young football teams in football, and one of the few teams that actually showed that they could go ahead and beat the Chiefs in a playoff game, right?
Yes.
I love a lot of things about this team. There's some things that I don't think are great, but they're made up for with some really good schemings and some other very good strengths. This is one team that I think is kind of a textbook example of covering up their weaknesses, right?
Right.
Whether that's schematically or with other talent at other spots. They have it all over. Like, this offensive line is bad, yet Joe Burrow is not going to get sacked a lot. Okay? How do they do that? We're going to get into it. This defensive line doesn't have DJ Reader anymore. How are they going to make up for that? That's where guys like Logan Wilson come in. The secondary isn't the best on earth. How do they make up for that? Lou Anarumo does some black magic on every play, right? This is a team that I really love watching on the All 22 because every play they're revealing some new way to cover up a weakness, right? And a lot of the reason they could do that is because of the talent that they have, right? They have a lot of talented guys. We head into the head coaching culture, and I think it's very simple. This is a young, exciting football team that is ready for those big games, right? They do not shudder at the possibility of playing on primetime playoff football. Battle tested because of the AFC North, like they are ready for big games with high stakes.
Yes, they are. And you start with Zach Taylor, who I think a lot of people, especially the first couple of years of his career with this Bengals team, kind of thought he was a fraud and kind of thought he was getting carried by some of the players on his team. But I thought he did a pretty damn good job considering the injury to his quarterback, considering injuries all over the team. I thought he did a pretty damn good job, not only as a culture guy, but I know he wasn't really doing the X's and O's, but even on the offense.
Yeah, and he is supposed to be an offensive guy. A lot of people kind of give him crap because the scheme isn't anything elaborate, but it works, right? That's all it's about. It works, okay? And it's not like you see it and you're like, oh, that shouldn't be working. No, you
Yeah.
see it and you're like, it's a simplistic concept. He's no Shanahan, right? He's not reinvented the wheel, but what he's doing, the scat protection, 5-man route concepts, full field progressions, it works. And they call the right plays at the right time. So, whether he's some guy who will reinvent the wheel, even from a culture perspective, I wouldn't say he does anything, really special. But this team was really bad a couple years ago. Then they started putting the pieces together, and Zach Taylor was the guy who rebuilt this team, really. And
Yes.
whether you like him or not, you got to give him credit for that.
And it's been stated this offseason that Zach Taylor is going to take a step back from offensive play calling and kind of hand the reins to Dan Pitcher, their new OC, after losing Brian Callahan, who's now the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And Pitcher, I'm curious, what do you think this offense is going to look like without Brian Callahan? Because as we know, Zach Taylor, you know, it came in as a Rams guy, West Coast guy, and then Brian Callahan was more of the spread offense that we saw this Bengals team really adopt and how they really started putting up points. He's gone. Do you think they revert more back to, maybe trying to under center, run the ball more, or do you think Dan Pitcher's going to come in under that same mindset of Brian Callahan?
I'm sorry to be boring here, but this goes back to kind of what I was saying. You look at what they were doing last year, it worked, right? When Joe Burrow was in, it worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
It worked really well for a couple years now. I don't see a reason why you stop doing what you were doing, right? I really don't. It. I completely understand, Zach Taylor, West Coast, but you look at how this team is built, right? The offensive line being what it is. Do you really want Joe Burrow under center? I would rather have him in shotgun. I'd rather
Yeah.
have him in shotgun. He gets the ball, read, and then worst case scenario, he goes to the fifth option. He reads 5 routes quicker than some quarterbacks read one. That is
Yeah.
the crazy thing with Joe Burrow, right? And I don't see why you don't continue to take advantage of that. Now, does this result in him getting hit a little bit because he, goes through 5 different reads at times? Sure. But he's going to get hit either way behind that offensive line. That's
Yeah.
the reality there. I am a big fan of Joe Burrow and how he executes this offense, and I think by switching it up to more of a West Coast, you're kind of, I don't think it would be bad, but you're kind of taking away what he does so well, and I don't see why you would.
Absolutely. So we're already talking about Burrow. Let's just talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow fortunately gets injured last year. This is one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in football. And I think people forget just how good Joe Burrow can be because when he's on, I mean, there's Mahomes. And if you're talking about a great Joe Burrow game, Joe Burrow's right below him. You know what I mean? Like, Joe Burrow can have those kinds of games, have those kinds of years. He does such a great job, as you said, getting through his progressions. One of the most mentally capable quarterbacks we have in the NFL, has fantastic pocket presence. The arm isn't elite, but it's more than enough. And with his accuracy, he's able to fit it anywhere with anticipation. I mean, Joe Burrow's a whole package, and they are very happy to have him back. Even though, like, the guy behind him, Jake Browning, wasn't awful. Like, he actually did a pretty fine job stepping in with Joe Burrow. It's just Joe Burrow's an elite guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose that caliber of player at the most important position in the sport, your team gets worse. And we saw that last year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You look at a quarterback in Joe Burrow who, like I said, what he does mentally is really the strength. And how quickly he processes, he is the quickest processor in the NFL, without a doubt. And I think that is what he brings you. That, along with his accuracy and really willingness to take a hit in the pocket, that's what makes Joe Burrow so good, right? The fact he snaps the ball instantly, he's reading the linebacker, reading his keys, whatever those are, and then knows where to put the ball. Exactly where to put the ball. That is what makes Joe Burrow so special. And when a Jake Browning comes in, he might be able to do it a little bit. He can't do it at Joe Burrow's level. And
Nope.
this is a offense I look at, and it needs elite quarterback play. Joe Burrow
Yes.
is an elite quarterback. That's the reality here. He can do it all, but more than anything, it's that processing ability, like I said, consistently putting the ball in the right place, throwing to the right receiver. That is what makes him so great. Jake Browning might be able to come in, schematically, you'll have to change some things, but he could still do fine, like we saw last year. But this is Joe Burrow's show, uh, unless something changes. He goes down again, which would suck, but possible.
It is possible. And unfortunately, if Joe Burrow were to go down, like, that's kind of why maybe this team isn't quite, like, even in the top 5, because we don't, like, Joe Burrow could get hurt again. That's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately the reality behind this offensive line. But let's move off the quarterbacks now. Let's move to these weapons. Another extremely exciting room. You got Jamar Chase, who any given season can be the best receiver in football. He's an elite guy from everything. He is just such an athletic freak and such a freak after the catch, along with his hands. I mean, he's mixed. Like, is he the most technically sound route runner? No, but he's not a bad route runner. And because he is so athletic, him not being a bad route runner turns into him being, people just can't keep up with him. It doesn't matter. So he also good contested catch guy, good guy to throw it deep down the field, and that's what this offense likes to do. They like throwing bombs. They like giving their guys chances. And Jamar Chase, he'll give you every chance in the book. So there's not a whole lot else to say about Jamar Chase.
I mean, it's almost Randy Moss-esque, right?
Yes.
The way that he is able to come down with the ball, the consistency at which he's able to come down with the ball, his ability to maneuver after the catch, an explosive play threat. And
Yes.
probably the best one in the league, honestly, other than maybe a
Mhm.
Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
He is electrifying at that X spot for them. And his ability to sell vertical is really the main thing here, right? A threat on every given play.
And behind him, T. Higgins, who I think isn't like there were moments when people were like T. Higgins is a top 10 receiver. I'm not quite there on T. Higgins, but he's a very good receiver. He could be the one on a lot of other teams. And it's not quite the athleticism of Chase, not really close, but he's much more of that, Mike Williams, throw it up, we're going to go catch that football type player in T. Higgins. And when I say he's not quite the athlete Jamar Chase, doesn't mean he's not a good athlete. He is able to get some stuff done after the catch. He's a pretty good technical route runner. Jamar Chase is just that elite athlete.
Yeah, it's just like how Jamar Chase can, catch through contact and win at the catch point. T. Higgins can do some of the Jamar Chase stuff. Well, Jamar Chase can do some of the T. Higgins stuff. Like, both of them can do both. It's just T. Higgins is the better 50-50 ball guy, and Jamar Chase is the better after-catch, playmaking, right?
Yes.
T. Higgins, I think, does a really good job settling versus zone. I think he's a nice possession guy because of his frame. Even if it's not contested, you just throw an inaccurate ball hole, make the effort, and pull it in, right? Both of them, very, very good receivers who complement each other pretty well.
Yep, absolutely. And then we get to the slot. And I think there is a couple different options for who you think is going to be playing the slot more this season. Do you think it's going to be the rookie Jermaine Burton? Or do you think we're going to see Andre I forget how to say the name, but Andre or Trent Irwin?
I mean, I think week one I'm probably leaning Trent Irwin.
Okay.
Tyler Boyd was important for them. We can't mistake that. He was their go-to, reliable, over-the-middle guy from the slot receiver spot. And I look for the best route runner, someone that can get open quick. I think Irwin is that guy. Yeah. I do. Jermaine Burton can come in later on, absolutely. I'm still not sure on him. I think Irwin, though. Andre...
He's fast.
Yeah, he has speed. He has speed. Definitely going to contribute as a special teamer. You can do some gadget stuff with him, but they don't really do gadget stuff. So I think I'm leaning Irwin. Because I think Irwin is a good receiver. Yes. Who could come in and play well.
I happen to agree. But the upside is with Jermaine Burton. Because Jermaine Burton, talent-wise, he's good. Jermaine Burton's a very good talent. It's more the stuff that's happening up here with Burton.
Yes.
And if he puts it together, it's going to make this receiving corps, which is already really good, even better. Because Tyler Boyd, while good last year and a very important part of this team, don't get me wrong, wasn't some game breaker or great slot receiver like he used to be. He just wasn't, because he's getting older and he's lost a step or two. Jermaine Burton's got juice, and Jermaine Burton can put it all together. This offense has juice.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no doubting that. Jermaine Burton has the ability to make this the best receiver trio in football again. But like I said, I just think Irwin is the more complete guy right now. I don't think you need a playmaker as that third receiver until you know for a fact he is that playmaker. We move over to running back now.
Losing Joe Mixon, but I think that's okay.
You have a duo here of Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Yes. I think Chase Brown is going to be the better running back. I think he's going to get more time on the field, but I'm fine with either of these two. In today's league, right? I'm fine with either of them.
Zach Moss had a really nice season for Indianapolis last year when Jonathan Taylor was down. Had some just really big games where he popped off. I don't think he's quite does that with the Bengals, unfortunately, because this line just isn't the Colts' offensive line, unfortunately. No. So, which makes it a lot easier to run behind, but still should be a good player for this team. Good catcher out of the backfield. I like Moss a lot. But, yeah, Chase Brown, rookie they drafted – well, not rookie, but they drafted him last year in the 5th round. Very much like home run style of play. He's got some explosiveness to his game. Now, he was pretty raw as a running back coming out. It didn't, read the hole well or, things of that nature. And you're hoping they can improve on that. But he's going to get a lot of screens as he did last year. They're just going to try and get him on home run hitting plays.
I also think that his low center of gravity makes him an interesting power back option.
Right.
Right? Because he is someone who could break some tackles. Right? And I don't think the lack of vision is too much of an issue because, let's be honest, how many holes are really opening up here, right?
Yes.
I think it becomes pretty obvious where the hole is with this Bengals team, and they've run a lot of gap. I I know it sounds strange saying kind of a scat back like a Chase Brown is a better gap runner than zone runner, but that's truly how I feel here, right? I think he is a better runner behind a gap scheme than a zone scheme. Zach Moss, I think, is also probably a better gap guy, but the Bengals are going to run both. That's always been how they are. They run both gap and zone, duo and inside zone, power trap. They kind of run everything. I like Chase Brown more than Moss, but I
Okay.
think Moss is
I think that's a
probably
fine pick to have.
I think Moss is probably a better pure runner at this moment because the vision issues, like you're saying, with Chase Brown. But no matter what a split between the two, I feel very comfortable with. Very comfortable.
Yes. Then we move to the unless there's another running back you want to touch on.
No. I mean, listen, you look at it, Trayvon Williams, a nice special teamer. Chris Evans, uninspiring. We'll get into Trayvon Williams a little bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
But
those are the main two.
let's move to the tight ends now. Definitely the weakest group on the offense, I would say. So, especially when your starter is Miami Dolphins legend Mike Gesicki, who's not a tight end. He is a glorified big slot receiver, is what Mike Gesicki is, and he's not that great at it. I'll be
Yeah.
completely honest with you.
Well, listen,
But
I think he gets open. He's a nice route runner, actually. But you disagree with that?
I think he's athletic. I wouldn't say he's a nice route runner. I think he's a tough matchup for linebackers because he is so big and athletic. I wouldn't say he's a great route runner though.
I feel like his body control and ability to get in and out of cuts, I feel good about. And I
Okay.
think that's the thing
But
here, right? He's able
yeah,
to separate. The only thing is, like, out of a slot, and that's what this guy is. He's a slot. Some after catch ability would be nice,
he has
Like,
none. I've
he
never
has
seen
none.
Mike Gesicki break a tackle. I've never once seen it. If someone can send me a clip of Mike Gesicki breaking a tackle, I will send you money. Like this is I've never seen him do it. Not once in a Dolphins uniform, not once in a Patriots uniform. It's just not something he does.
Yeah, he's like I can't even say possession because I don't think he catches through contact well.
He's a red zone guy. I think he's a red zone guy.
He's
That's what I think his role is.
he's a separator from the tight end spot. Well, again, I still think whether it's because of his athleticism, because of his ability to cut, I think he's a good separator. And then that's it. Right? That's kind of all he's going to offer you. Doesn't block. Just not his game at all. Uh but you know who does block? And I know he's older
Drew
now.
Sample does.
Or I guess he did get drafted in 2019. I feel like he's been in the
Yeah,
league since a lot longer. But
yeah.
uh
Drew Sample blocks, man.
yeah. Yes, he's a good blocker. He
Yes, he
doesn't
is.
catch balls. That's not his game at all. But ideal tight end too. Able to come in,
Yes.
block people, do a good job at it. Very simple.
Now, Jasicki is listed as the starter on the depth chart. I'd be surprised if Tanner Hudson wasn't really the traditional inline wide tight end for this team to start.
Hmm.
He had a good couple games for this team last year as a undrafted guy.
Yes, he
So
did. The only thing is though, as a jumbo slot, is that ideal for him over a Gasicki? I don't know. I think he could do it.
he just offers so much more than Jasicki.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
he
fair.
just does.
Yep. And then I think I guess we kind of have to mention Eric All. I didn't
Yeah,
like Eric All.
I didn't like Eric All at all, and it sucks because he's an Iowa tight end, and
Hmm.
there's a decent chance he works out as an all right guy because he went to Iowa and is an Iowa tight end. But I was not moved by his tape. I didn't see
Probably the
anything.
worst blocker.
Yeah, he was not good. He was not good.
Probably the not worst blocker in the draft. Not worst. Just the worst blocker.
Yeah,
Like, ever.
he is a receiving tight end
Yeah.
who I think can run a route tree. I think he can run
Yes.
most of the full
Yes.
route tree. I think he's good at that. But I don't think he's an overwhelming athlete. I don't think he's got overwhelming skills at the catch point.
I don't even
I don't
think
know.
he settles versus zone well. And for me, that's a big thing. I feel like as a tight end, you have to be able to settle versus zone. Like,
Right.
that is the main thing I look for in a receiving tight end. That's how Kelsey has made his career. Eric All can't really do that. And he doesn't have the athleticism to be a great man beater either. And he's an awful blocker. So, like, what is he providing you?
I don't
I
know.
kind of hate Eric All, but, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he goes out there and balls out as a rookie. I
He's
have
an
no
Iowa
idea.
tight end. Who
Yeah.
knows? But
Yeah.
well, now let's move to this offensive line, and this
Oh.
is where we really start to see the issues with this team, man.
Mm-hmm.
Start at left tackle with Orlando Brown. He is okay. Like he's he has his games where he's all right, and he has games where he's getting beat every
Yeah,
snap. It's just unfortunately the case.
the inconsistency is really frustrating
Yeah.
with him. I think at this point he still is a good run blocker.
Yes.
Like, I'll give him that. But as a pass blocker, he could get beat easily by some of the
Yeah.
worst edges in football. Can he also go toe to toe with a TJ Watt and shut them down? Sure. Like, yeah, it happens. Right? So the inconsistency is frustrating with Orlando Brown. Absolutely. There's no doubting that.
And probably the weakest link along this line, which is saying a lot, left guard. They've just continually been the last 3 years or so. This spot has just been awful, and it continues to be really bad. Last year was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's not good. Michael Jordan was really, really bad. This year it's Cordell Volson, who you hope is better than Jordan, and that's a low bar, but we'll have to see.
I Do you think there's a world where they move Jackson Carman to guard? The backup left tackle? Like,
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
think that would
you
be
could
that much better.
try. Exactly, they could try. I'm not sure how much better that'd
But
be.
maybe the position switch from left tackle to left guard
Could they move?
helps.
Can Trent Brown play guard?
He's too big.
Shit. Well,
But
I
I mean,
mean,
listen, Falele plays guard now
Falele's
in the
playing
same
guard,
division. So,
exactly.
maybe we're wrong. Maybe Drew Sample goes out there and plays guard. Fuck it. Why
Hey,
not?
sometimes they need it. Hey, yeah, Trent Brown's the exact same size as Falele. If the Ravens can do it, he can do it. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Trent Brown is uninspiring.
Yes.
As a guard, but even as a tackle, honestly. I was going to wait till after we finish to get over to him, like after we finish the starters. I mean, is there a world where maybe he start? Let's just move to right tackle now, I guess.
Do you want to go? Just keep going down the line to
You know what?
center. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, after we talk about whatever's going on at guard, we got center, right? And
Ted Karras is fine.
yeah, like
He's not like a liability.
he's not as bad as the other guys.
Yeah.
Maybe with better guard play, he would look good. It sucks that they don't have better guard play. But if hypothetically they did, maybe he looks fine.
Yeah.
But because the guard play's awful, it's pretty. He might have one of the most difficult center jobs in the NFL. Except for the fact that passing scheme, pretty much says it's okay if you let your guy get through you in 1 second. We have Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, his guards don't do him any favors, and he doesn't get beat as consistently as the other guys. But yeah, still
Well,
not.
let's move to the
inspiring.
other guy to
Yeah.
right guard. This was huge free agent fish a couple seasons ago. So funny how their NFL's like no tampering, and then literally as soon as free agency started, Alex Keppa had this had this deal signed. So really funny here, but he's not been good, unfortunately, for this team. He's been quite bad, I would say.
He has been in offenses like this with the quick ball out type stuff his whole career. And I think that helps him.
Yes.
If he wasn't in offenses like that, I feel like he would not still have a job. Honestly. Alex Kappa is really bad. I mean, at least we're not talking about Trent Brown potentially replacing him.
Yeah.
But, he is not exciting at all. At all. Then we move over to the only time I'm going to be optimistic here.
Yes, the only time I'll be optimistic as well. Amarius Mims, rookie right tackle Amarius Mims, out of Georgia. I was huge on Amarius Mims. I thought Amarius Mims was going to be really. I take it like this. I think he should have been if it wasn't for the injury concerns, which are valid. They are very valid with Marius Mims. I thought he could have been. I thought he should have been a surefire top 10 pick. I think Marius Mims was really good on tape.
It's not just like, oh, he has an injury history. It's the fact that that injury history resulted in him showing so little on film, right?
Yeah.
Because he has so little film. However, every single snap of him is like near perfection.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You do not see an athlete that big move as fluid as he does. He has such fantastic feet, such fantastic technique. Like this guy's a start. If he stays healthy this season, I have no issue saying Amarius Mims is a really good right tackle. That's what I think he is. Year one, a really good right tackle. If he can stay healthy,
it's just about consistency, right?
Yeah.
Can he stay on the field? And if he does stay on the field, will he be who we saw in college, right? Yeah. That's the question with him. But there's no reason to, like, when I'm telling you every rep, I mean every rep.
I really, it'd take me, I don't know if I could find a bad rep. I'll be completely honest with you. Like, it's a really, really good
Even
game.
when, like, he got beat, it wasn't really like, oh, he leaned too much. It was more of like, he plays at Georgia. You play some good competition at Georgia, right?
Yes.
He was pretty much, I mean, there was not a single game where he had, like, a bad game.
He did not have
a single quarter where he had a bad quarter. There's not a drive where he had a bad drive. There might have been individual reps where he got beat. But even those weren't bad reps. They were kind of just, there's good players on defense too, right?
Yeah.
Amarius Mims is a stud. Absolute stud. It sucks that he has the injury history because this very likely means we're going to see Trent Brown.
Yeah.
Who, at tackle,
we already talked about.
Yeah, he's better at tackle because he isn't, you're supposed to be tall at tackle. At guard, he would get bull rushed because of how tall he is. At tackle, though, good run blocker. Like, still a really good run blocker. Pass blocking, like every other huge, massive guy, he has the huge, massive guy problem. You speed rush him, you work outside, you have a good bend, he's kind of fucked. Like, that's what we see here. So, yeah. I mean, listen, the offensive line is bad, but what we talked about earlier in terms of hiding that, making up for that, it's true. And it's not like that limits the playbook because that's what they want to do anyway. And they're able to get some big plays while getting the ball out quick because of how speedy these receivers are. So, the offensive line is bad, but it matters way less than it does for any other team in the NFL.
I absolutely agree. Let's move into these offensive superlatives now.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive player of the year, who are you going to pick?
It's got to be Joe Burrow.
Has to be Joe Burrow, correct. Now, offensive rookie of the year. There are two options here, really.
Yes.
I'm curious to see which direction you're going.
Uh-huh. Now, I thought that you were going to say them, but I guess I'll say them. Jermaine Burton as a potential slot receiver for them. Or Eric Alton. No, I'm kidding. Amarius Mims, right? Amarius Mims, we talked about. He should be really good when he's on the field. It's just about, will he be on the field? Will he be on the field enough? But also, will Jermaine Burton be on the field much? I think he has competition. Trenton Irwin is a legitimate receiver. I think I'm leaning Mims.
I would lean Mims well. I would lean Mims as well. Now, is your X Factor or 12th man on this?
My X Factor is a little bit interesting. It's Orlando Brown. Because we've seen seasons of him being a straight-up elite tackle. Will he return to form? Right? That is my question here. Because it's not like he's so old that he's washed. Like, it's not like he's so old that it's, to a point where he can't recover.
Yeah.
There's a reason to believe he kind of just bounces back because, playoff team, he understands he wants to win a ring, he's really inspired. There's a very real chance.
Yes.
And if he does bounce back and he's a good left tackle, that's a really good sign for the Bengals. Really good sign. Because now they might be able to dial up more play action because Joe Burrow will have the time, right? And the play action, of course, helps delay the rush, but teams don't really respect their run game, honestly, because that offensive line is so bad. So I gotta go Orlando Brown as my X Factor. Do you have either your X Factor or your 12th man here?
my X factors here, and my X factor is on the opposite side with Amarius Mims. If Amarius Mims can stay, or I should say Amarius Mims' health. If Amarius Mims can stay healthy, I'm very confident he's going to be a very good tackle. And if you can get a very good tackle on the right side, just a very good player on this offensive line, it's going to help out Joe Burrow a lot. It just is.
Well, I think more than anything, too, like the run game.
Yes.
Right? Being able to establish the run game the run game has always been like average with the Bengals. If they could take that next step and get into like the top 10,
yeah,
on top of Joe Burrow doing Joe Burrow things, like this is less about the passing game for me on the offensive line than it is about the run game. If they could go out there and start establishing a little bit more of an inside run game, on top of being able to run behind a Orlando Brown, being able to run behind a Amarius Mims, being able to run behind a Trent Williams, I think that's a really good thing for them. Like, there's a part of me that wants to say X Factor, one of their guards, but I just don't know which one.
Right.
I'd rather say something where I know the player. And Orlando Brown, I know the player.
Yeah. And let's do you have your 12th man here, or is it on defense?
No, my 12th man is on defense.
Yeah. So let's now move this defense, and we'll start with the defensive coordinator, one of the best in the league, in Lou Anarumo. This, he's a large part of why this Bengals team has been so good these last few years.
Yes.
Lou Anarumo and this defense have been cooking, man.
One of the biggest advantages you could have as an NFL team, especially a competitive NFL team, is a defensive coordinator that won't get hired to be a head coach. I don't really know why. I think it's his age probably that scares teams away, but Lou Anarumo is not getting many head coach looks. He isn't. And because of that, the Bengals kind of just have one of the best defensive coordinators in football, and they don't have to worry about losing him, which is a huge, huge advantage because then you're able to stay consistent on the defense side of the ball. You're able to bring in players knowing what the identity of your defense is going to be this year and down the line, right? Because Anarumo hasn't really changed what he's done. He likes man coverage. He loves man coverage, especially cover one, and he's willing to blitz on top of it.
Loves cover one.
He does some creative blitzes, and he also does some creative rotations of his safeties. He'll run a little bit of cover two, or I would say, honestly, a decent amount of cover two, but it's not just traditional cover two man. And also cover two zone is really what I'm talking about here. It's not just like normal cover two zone, Tampa 2. It's a lot of invert. And he likes to disguise his cover two out of a one high look. He does that very often. And, does he run like quarters? Really? No. Does he run even cover three? Really? No, not really. But
it's a lot of man, it's a lot of two.
Yeah. And the fact that those are kind of his two things, it's kind of like, how do I want to word this? I think it's more of like, they have their go-to. But the perfect, like counter, mix-up, change-up, whatever you want to say, is that Tampa 2 that he runs.
Yeah.
And then being able to run it in all these different ways, it's, really scary. And then he starts blitzing.
It's a lot like Gannon, who we talked about, in the sense that Gannon just runs quarters, match quarters. That's what he runs.
Yeah.
But he'll throw a little wrinkle in there every so often. He does that, but with cover one.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he likes.
My thing is that he has the wrinkles in cover one, but then I think the advantage he has over a Jonathan Gannon is that he does have that change up of the Tampa 2 every now and then. And he has a lot of different looks for that too. So that's what really makes him dynamic, because right when you're expecting cover one, you still see the one high safety look, and you're like, okay, cover one, here it comes. And you're ready to throw that go ball down the sideline.
And you've got the safety inverting, running across.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And I also find it interesting with their man coverage. I don't know how they do it, but it's a pretty risky game they play, where if they see receivers switching, right?
They'll
like switch. They will switch responsibilities. And that's something like, that is like ideal. You want to see that, but very few NFL defenses are willing to actually do it.
I was going to say that because bracketing, a lot of corners will tell you, like in high school, you're taught to bracket a lot of the time because you're not dealing with these like bracketing happens a lot more at the lower levels. You don't bracket at the NFL level very often unless you're in the red zone, and like they do it everywhere. They do
exactly.
it everywhere.
Like, that's
they
the thing here
all the time, and it's so surprising.
And then you mix in the blitzes, which is another like wrinkle there. Oh, it's gonna be fine. I'll be able to diagnose the coverage coming at me. and then the linebacker that you thought was just going to have a middle zone, he's blitzing, right? And then Mike Hilton is coming at you on a blitz, and then the linebacker's going to cover over. Like, a lot of, in terms of, like, what they do, it's really just two things. But the ways in which they, or I guess three, because the man blitz is kind of a different concept, but still, right? In terms of how they mix it up, though, in terms of how they add those wrinkles, in terms of how they coach it up, that is what makes Anarumo so interesting to me. Defensive coordinator I really love, and he's been consistent his entire way through.
I'm very excited to see what adjustments he makes this year because I think we can both agree the last 3 years or so, this defense has been kind of built around DJ Reader. Like that. That's kind of how they've made their not only roster, but how they've called their plays, how they get the formations. It's been built around DJ Reader. And DJ Reader is now a Lion. Very much a bad thing for the rest of the NFC, but we'll get to that later. And DJ Reader is one of the best nose tackles in the league, one of the best run defenders in the league. And now, believe me, they've tried to address it. We're just going to have to see if it works, and we're going to have to see the adjustments that Anarumo makes.
Yeah. So we'll start with the defensive line then, I guess. I don't feel as similarly in the sense of, like, you lose DJ Reader, now all of a sudden everything you did defensively doesn't work. Like, I don't think that's the case.
I don't think that's the case either.
DJ Reader was a huge impact player.
Huge part of this defense and how it was run.
But I think, what's the term that they always use in Moneyball? What is
the aggregate?
The aggregate value, right? Or whatever they say.
Yeah.
I feel like they've recreated the aggregate of losing a DJ Reader with depth, right? Because I look at their 4-man, maybe even 5-man rotation if you include a Zach Carter. I look at their 5-man rotation they have on an interior defensive line. Sheldon Rankins I really like as a pass rusher for them. As a pass rusher. He's really a very good pass rushing defensive lineman. That was a lot of what DJ Reader would provide. But then, of course, he was a very good run stuffer, and that's when a B.J. Hill's able to come in and really do damage, right? He's a really good run stuffer. He's a big, strong body.
He's a Patrick Seifert defensive tackle.
Yes, but he also has a little bit of elusiveness to him. He's able to get past people and make plays that way. You want to talk about a Patrick Seifert defensive tackle, though. That's when we move over to the two guys they drafted, Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, both of which Patrick Seifert defensive tackles. Big body, stuff the run, get in your gap, and fill it, stay there. Preseason wasn't overly inspiring for Chris Jenkins, but it was only one game. I'm not freaking out about it. At least it was against starters. I'm expecting him to be a rotational guy as of right now. I think he has the ability to be a lot more, but we'll see, right? And then McKinley Jackson, we didn't see much of him in the preseason. He seemed fine. He is, though, a huge body ready to stuff the run, right? And then Zach Carter is another big guy, but he's pretty much a mix of kind of what you're getting into Rankins while also being what you're getting into Chris Jenkins. Zach Carter is a guy that I really like. Those 5 guys, I think, as a rotation, will allow them to not feel the loss of DJ Reader quite as much. Because I do really like that depth right there.
It is good depth, objectively good depth. We're just going to have to see. I think I can agree with that if these rookies can step in. Step in and be good players immediately. Mm-hmm. We have yet to see that. So far, a little uninspired, but as he said, it's just one game. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see. But a group I'm more confident in is this edge group. I like this edge group quite a bit, especially with Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson came over from the Saints as this kind of he's just a pass rush specialist. He's really good pass rushing, but he's a damn good edge setter too, and he's turned into one of the better edges in the league.
I still question how the hell that happened. He went to the Bengals and he was able to do it all. It's just where was this on the Saints?
Where was this on the Saints? Yeah. Exactly.
I guess he didn't get opportunities because he only came in on 3rd and longs, but still, he did a really good job. And then Sam Hubbard is very similar. Good pass rusher, but also very good against the run. Very good. And, you have that duo, which does a very good job. Trey Hendrickson is one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. Sam Hubbard is one of the best complementary guys in the NFL. But then you add the depth on top of it. Joseph Asai is someone I think could go out there and chase down some run plays. I know that he had that mistake, what was it, 2 years ago now, in the playoffs. A lot of people still freak out over that whenever they hear the name Joseph Osai, but he's a good player, man. And, his lateral quickness is a big trait. That means a lot for this team. And then you bring in their former first-round pick, Myles Murphy, who hasn't done too much yet. I feel like he showed some good things on film in the NFL, though.
That's the thing, though. Yeah, I wasn't a big Myles Murphy guy coming out of the draft. I was like, I'm not super moved. I'm not sure he's quite the athlete that a lot of people thought he was. And but here's the thing. He's a big guy. He's a good edge setter. And in the few snaps he played this year, the few games he played in this year, he put on some good tape. So to have that depth at the defensive line along with having some upside is a big deal.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what he is. He's upside because he has those traits, right? At Clemson, it was weird. He got, worse every year. It was really strange.
Yes.
But the fact he had some good tape in the NFL, that's a good sign, man.
Now, will he get worse every year in the NFL?
That's the question, right? But even then, rotational player. So it's not the end of the world. This is a deep D-line, both at edge and on the interior, and that's what I like here. I would rather have a defensive line like this, where you have a lot of guys you could rotate in and guarantee that you're always going to get guys anywhere from 100 to 90% on every given snap. I would much rather have this than kind of what the 49ers have, where they have a lot of, they have four good players.
They have stars, yeah.
They have star power in their starting four. But then after that, you don't have the depth. Those four guys get tired, then what? Right? I don't feel that way about the Bengals. I think they have the depth, and I think that's a really good thing, especially on the D-line. We move over to the linebackers. I think these are the guys that, let's say they can't recreate the aggregate with, DJ Reader gone, and the depth on the interior defensive line can't quite get it done. I think it's always going to be good. I think there's no world where it's a bad defensive line. It's just a question of how good will they be. If they're not as good as I'm expecting, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are going to do a really good job making up for that.
Yes.
Really good job. This is a really good linebacker duo. A linebacker duo I think gets very, very underrated because, first off, they're off-ball linebackers. They don't get much respect. But, two, they're not flashy, but they're damn consistent. Both as coverage guys and as tacklers. Both Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson consistently get the job done here.
Yes. And again, as you said, not flashy, but consistently do their jobs. You're really going to find them in the wrong spot. They both have a pretty good feel in coverage, I would say, more so in Wilson's case. But, you're not worried about these linebackers. You are a little worried, I would say, if one were to go down. I don't love the depth that they have in the linebacker room. But, you're just really banking, which is, you could say for a lot of this team, you're really banking on the health and for this team to stay healthy. So this is that group that's doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think they have the depth of the other positions on the defense, but I still like those starting two. I still really like those starting two. We move over to the secondary then. They kind of had a down year last year.
Yes.
And I'm not overly sure why, but while everyone else was kind of having a down year, Cam Taylor-Britt kind of emerged as this
He
star.
emerged as a star. I would not be surprised if he's one of the top 10 best corners in football next year. I wouldn't really be surprised. He was that good.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, they're running a lot of man. This isn't the easy stuff. They're not running layups, okay?
They're not running cover three every play like it's the Colts, okay? They are man coverage, bracketing receivers, and, Cam Taylor-Britt was the star of the show in the secondary last year, and I fully expect him to be the star of the show this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see why that would change, right? But at the same time, I didn't think it would really change with, a guy like Mike Hilton. But he kind of had a down year as a coverage guy last year. Still the nickel corner. The nickel. I'm not saying the best nickel, but I'm saying you look up nickel corner in the dictionary,
it's
a picture of Mike Hilton will pop up. Okay? Yes. Because he's been a nickel for so long now, and he's good at it. He does all the stuff you want. Good tackler, able to defend the run, and, bounce runs back inside. But also, if you run a screen pass, he'll make a play on that and make the tackle, prevent it from being a big gain. Also, very good blitzer. Probably, I don't know if he still is, but in terms of like career, I don't know how many corners could be trusted in like NFL history on a blitz as much as Mike Hilton. Right? I'm curious. Now I'm gonna look this up when I like finish this recording. Who's the all-time sack leader at the corner position? I wouldn't be surprised if it's Mike Hilton.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm really curious because Mike Hilton has had so many. Like even with Pittsburgh, he was blitzing, right? He's the nickel corner. He's a very traditional nickel corner.
Rodney Harrison has the most career sacks by defensive back with 30.5.
That's a D-back. I'm talking about corner.
Right? Corner.
Specifically corners.
I'm gonna go try and find a specifically corner.
Well, if you want to look through the,
do you want to call Charles Woodson a corner or D-back?
Yeah, Charles Woodson's a corner.
Okay, so it's him with 20.
Where is Mike Hilton on that list? Now I'm curious.
Mike Hilton.
Control F Hilton.
I know. I'm trying to find it. I'm not seeing him.
Really? He definitely has a lot of pressures.
Maybe, but he's not in the top 25, I'll tell you that.
Okay, well, just look up Mike Hilton's sacks number. Now I'm curious. Yeah. Career sacks. I wonder how many. If he doesn't have a lot of sacks, he has a bunch of pressers. I know that.
He has 11 and a half.
11 and a half. Still from a corner. Like that. 11 and a half.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mike Hilton, though, he's someone I really trust at that nickel spot. It's just last year, coverage-wise, he wasn't as special. He's starting to kind of lose a step. However, they also have youth here, right? DJ Turner is their other corner, their other outside corner. They run a lot of nickel. They run a 4-2-5. So Mike Hilton's going to
I quite like Turner coming out of the draft. I was a little disappointed in his tape last year in the NFL.
He still has the speed to match anyone, though.
He does. I think his tape last year is a big reason why they moved Dax Hill from safety to corner. And I wouldn't be surprised that Dax Hill is the starting right corner because I still believe in Dax Hill. I liked him as a safety coming out. I'm wondering if he can pull who was that corner on the Cowboys that did that? Went from safety to corner and was good. And he was Dolphin.
Byron Murphy? Or no, not Byron Murphy. Byron Young? Was that it?
No.
Byron Young was the corner on Miami, though. Right?
No.
Hold on. Byron Jones. Byron Jones was who I was thinking of.
Byron Jones.
There we go. I know it was a Byron. The guy who had the really nice vertical jump or forward.
The long jump.
Long jump. I almost said the forward jump. My lord.
But I'm wondering if Dax Hill can make that kind of leap because he has insane athleticism for a defensive back man. So we'll see. I think it's a battle between these two as of right now. We'll see. They drafted Josh Newton as well at TCU, and I thought Josh Newton went about where he should have, but his tape's not bad. It wasn't bad.
And this goes back to what I was saying. Lou Anarumo loves his depth, and he's gonna find. I don't know who it's gonna be. It might be Dax Hill. It might be Josh Newton. It might be Nate Brooks. Right. Someone is going to emerge and be a fine second corner in a really good scheme. Right.
Yes.
Someone will. It's a question of who, right? And this, again, goes back to Anarumo's philosophy. He loves depth. It's the next man up. Okay, we lost to Wouzier. We drafted guys for this. Who's going to come up and play, right? They don't throw away draft picks. Every pick is calculated. Even if they don't work out, there's a reason behind the pick. And they understand how risky they could be. They know corner's a big need, so they went with a Josh Newton, who could potentially come in and play well for them. But yeah, Dax Hill is a name I'm really entertained by. You look at that safety room that used to have Dax Hill; they're not hurt too much by losing him, right?
I think a large part of why Dax Hill was moved to corner is not only because of DJ Turner's tape last year, but because they signed Geno Stone and they have Jordan Battle in the back.
Yes, and then they also brought Von Bell back, right? They have 3 guys, all 3 of which I think are capable NFL starting safeties. Not the greatest players on earth, but Von Bell was pretty good with Cincinnati in the past. And Geno Stone, I think he probably is their best safety, Geno Stone.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm curious to see how he works outside of this McDonald defense.
That's fair.
Because he was a big benefactor. But,
yeah. Mhm.
We'll see. I would say he's the best right now, though. Yes.
Yeah. No, he very good player. And then worst case scenario, one of those guys kind of fall off. Jordan Battle comes in. He was when he came in last year, he was very consistent, right? Not a
Yes.
stud, but very consistent player for them.
And and if DJ Turner or Josh Newton's good, they might just move Dax Hill back if they're
Yep.
struggling at safety.
Hmm.
So I think they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Now we move over to defensive superlative. Who are you thinking here with defensive player of
Defensive
the year?
Player of the Year is tough. I think there's a lot of avenues you could go with this pick. I'm gonna go with Cam Taylor-Britt. I think Cam Taylor-Britt's gonna continue off that great year last year and really cement himself as one of the top corners of football this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of names that you can mention here, like you said. Cam Taylor Britt is definitely a good one, right? But then you could even go ahead and say a Logan Wilson.
Yes,
I could
absolutely.
understand an argument for Sheldon Rankins or BJ Hill. I really can. But I do think it's going to be a rotation. I'm going to go ahead and say Trey Hendrickson.
That was
Now,
my other
yeah,
option.
this is a defense that is better than the sum of its parts. They don't have overwhelming stars, but they have a lot of players that mesh together and make a much better unit than some defenses that have way more star power. This is going to be a good defense. It's going to be because of the scheme and how everyone's coached to work together.
Yeah.
Like that is what this is. This is a defense that is, like I said, better than the sum of its parts. Move over to defensive rookie of the year. Who do you got?
Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think there's multiple options to go with here. I'm gonna go with Chris Jenkins because of what I saw on tape at Michigan. Good run defender. Did he show that in the preseason against the Bucks interior offensive line? No, he did not. But I'm gonna bet on the tape I watched, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be Chris Jenkins.
And I'm in agreement. I was a huge Chris Jenkins guy.
Yes, you
Too
were.
huge of a Chris Jenkins guy, it seems. But I mean, listen, it was one game. He might bounce back. He better. So I don't look like a complete fool. But I had some takes about it.
Tell him where you had them in this
I
in terms
had,
of
listen, I liked Byron Young. I wasn't
Byron
as
Murphy.
big.
Byron Young has come
Oh,
back to
Byron
haunt you.
Murphy.
Byron Murphy.
Yeah, I liked Byron Murphy. I thought he was good. I thought, he makes some plays. But to me, he was more of a complimentary, I need the big guy next to me. Meanwhile, because of how I like my defensive tackles, I like him big, I like him chunky, I like him able to eat up that A gap. Chris Jenkins was really good at that. So Chris Jenkins was my DT1. I might be delusional, it seems. I might belong in a psych ward at the moment because Byron Murphy had one of the best debuts I've seen by a rookie defensive
Okay,
lineman ever.
we'll talk about that after the show. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
very
And
good.
then Chris Jenkins didn't do that at all.
There was one side of the spectrum and the complete opposite
Yes,
side of the
yes.
spectrum, unfortunately.
And Chris Jenkins was on that opposite end. However, Chris Jenkins was still, in Michigan, a very good player.
Yes.
I'm expecting him to help make up for that DJ Reader loss, along with McKinley Jackson, who I think you could definitely say here, because he didn't have an awful preseason debut.
The other guy I was considering is Josh Newton because the second corner is up in the air right now.
Mhm.
And if neither Turner or Dax Hill can put it together, Josh Newton ran a lot of man at TCU. And
Yeah.
this is something he's used to, and there's reason he was drafted. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
So my 12th man is once again Chris Jenkins, right? Because I expect him to go out there, kind of return to form, right? It was between him and Miles Murphy, really, because I did like Miles Murphy in terms of his good tape at Clemson. Yeah, so it was between those two. I already talked about Chris Jenkins, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about Miles Murphy more.
Well, let me do that because my pick
He's your
for
X
12 man is
factor?
Miles Murphy. No, he's my 12 man.
Who's your X Factor?
Murray Smims.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Miles Murphy was my 12th man. He's going to come in. I really like what he can do again, I really like the tape he put out last year. He was a good run defender. He had his flashes in pass rush situations. I just expect this guy to be he's an AFC North defensive end is what he is. He's a big guy who's going to stop the run and can flash and pass pro. And I'm excited to see how he gets later in the year. I'd even be if he keeps developing, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's more of like a 50-50 split between him and Sam Hubbard. Like that, if he keeps developing, he can do that. So I'm excited to see.
Yeah. I feel like you look at the special teams unit then. I don't think it's some great unit, but I think it's fine, right?
It's fine.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Evan McPherson, when it comes to playoffs, really turns it up,
Yes.
as we all know. Only kicker to go out and just watch the halftime show. And he was performing well enough to earn that, right? He had a great playoff run. In the regular season, like, he's fine. I think it's just like that clutch gene in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then their punter, they kind of have a battle there, and Brad Robbins, who wasn't too good last year, and Ryan Rakow from BYU, who was a UDFA. I don't know who wins that job. If it's Robbins, I mean, that tells you all we need to know about Rakow, because Robbins wasn't special. Then you look at the returners. I like their top two guys, or at least what I project to be their top two, in Chase Brown and Trenton Irwin. They should be good, but they also have Charlie Jones, Trayvon Williams,
Right.
who was their most experienced returner, and then Kwame Lassiter Jr., who could also go out there and be fine. In terms of other contributors, I feel like Tanner Hudson, Daxton Hill, if he's not starting, Joe Bacci, and Eric All, Drew Sample, too. Those are the guys I think will also perform on special teams, besides just their specialist, obviously. Then we move over to the schedule. In terms of floor and ceiling, what do you have?
I think the floor for this team, because there is a reality where Joe Burrow gets hurt again, and I think there's a reality where this run defense isn't quite what we thought it'd be. So for me, I'm thinking 8 and 9 for the floor for the Bengals.
Yeah. I also put 8 and 9, and then for the ceiling, what would you say?
I say this team's ceiling is around 13-4.
Yeah, no, I agree. 13 and 4. What did you put for your prediction?
My prediction, they ended up, my thing closed. My prediction for the Bengals, I had them winning the division 12-5.
So, I had my ceiling the same as my prediction, 13 and 4.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah, I do think.
Ceiling.
Yeah, I
This is
do
your first
think
ceiling team.
that this is going to be a team that lives up to all the potential, assuming everyone stays healthy, right? We move over to the schedule now. Pretty easy game week 1 against the Patriots. How do you think this one goes? Is it on upset watch, or what do you think?
I'd be surprised if the Patriots upset much of anybody this season after they just traded Judon.
Yeah.
Which,
along with losing Barmore, they won't even be able to take advantage of this line of scrimmage unit for the Bengals. So, yeah, I agree. Easy one for the Bengals. But then they play against the team that they've kind of been a pain in their rear ever since Joe Burrow and the Bengals really became a new team. They play against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I'm taking the Bengals, right? They've had their number, it seems.
They have, but I feel pretty. I think I would take the Chiefs here. It just cut partly because it is in Arrowhead, and the Chiefs get the Chiefs have also developed this like annoyance with the Bengals at this point too. Like they're just kind of after the Burrowhead stuff.
Well, it is a legitimate rivalry.
Yes,
it is.
Sure, but I think this Chiefs team is going to be pretty determined to be like, yeah, you're not winning at Arrowhead again, man. So I feel.
But I think the Bengals are just as willing to go out there. They think it's just as important to prove that it is still Arrowhead.
That's fine, but until proven otherwise, I need to see Chris Jenkins and this defensive line be able to stop this inside run game of Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, and that great offensive line. That's very fair. Then we move over to week 3. I'm still shocked this is a primetime game.
That's a primetime game? Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Against Washington. Monday Night Football. I mean, I have no idea what to expect from Washington in terms of, how their offense will function, because I really think Daniels is going to get sacked that much. Trey Hendrickson might have a day. Sam Hubbard might have a day. Chris Jenkins, Sheldon Rankins, all these guys are going to have a day because Washington's O-line is that bad.
Right. And I would be even more so surprised in this of like what am I trying to say here? I'd be even more so surprised of just like how does this defense stop the offense? Because you got the interior, Deron Payne
Yeah,
and Jonathan Allen.
but the
That's
ball
going to
gets
be a
out
big
so
help.
quick. Does it really
Well,
matter?
it doesn't matter exactly. And this is like I tell you how the script's going to go. Emmanuel Forbes is going to be like come into this game because he's been really struggling in camp and won't start the season. He's going to come into this game, and for some reason, he's going to be on Jamar Chase 3 times, and all 3 times he's going to be getting beat for a touchdown because of what happened with the H.A. Brown game last time. So yeah, I don't know why this is a primetime game. I guess they wanted LSU quarterback against LSU quarterback, right?
It's going to be really fun to talk about it pregame, and that's about it. Yeah, I don't think it's worth being primetime television, but you got to give Washington some primetime football, I guess.
Yes.
Then they play against Carolina. Is this game on upset watch potentially with Bryce Young being able to maybe do some offensive damage? No.
I think it can be, and I think it's more so on the fact of like the Panthers have are pretty weak along the defensive line compared to like other teams, of course. But this is a team that I think this is an offensive line that I think Evero can take advantage of on defense. So if there's a way that they can start getting to Joe Burrow, maybe there's a chance. And yeah, again, if this team's run defense isn't what we think it could be, and they can get the play action game rolling, maybe the Panthers offense can do something.
I
Will it
also
happen?
think I
I
also
don't know.
think this might be a game where you look at the Bengals offense, or sorry, Bengals secondary last year especially. You know, that corner room had a little bit of a down year. If they can't recover, I could see Deontay kind of having a day. I could see Leggett kind of having a day.
Right.
I just think it's worth mentioning, if the Bengals can't recover, I definitely put this one on upset watch.
Yeah, me too.
Then they go against the Ravens in Cincinnati. If one team were to win both, who do you think it would be?
Probably Cincinnati, but I do have them splitting.
I will say, I think the Bengals match up well against all of their division rivals.
It's in the back of my head now, man, after what I've seen in these preseason games. This would be a really bad matchup if they can't get this run defense going, though.
But again, you have to mention with the preseason games, even if Jenkins isn't a stud, even if he's bad, they still have 2 guys that could go out there and play good football in B.J. Hill and Rankins. So, Jenkins is kind of just like a luxury to have as that depth. They don't need Jenkins to start. They would like him to. They would like him to be a good rotational piece. Same with McKinley Jackson. But if he's not, it isn't the end of the world, really. So I look at it. I still think the run defense will be just fine.
It's just you put it all on B.J. Hill. And B.J. Hill's a fine player. I don't know how great I feel about putting it all on B.J. Hill, at least run defense-wise. And not saying Sheldon Rankins can't play the run. He can. That's a pass rush specialist is what Sheldon Rankins is. You know what I mean? So we'll see. It could be bad, but yeah, if I were to pick a team to win both, I'd still pick the Bengals. Because not only that, the Bengals seem to have kind of the Ravens' number too.
Yeah. No, again, I think the Bengals, one thing you got to give Zach Taylor a lot of credit for, really, really good at, defending and playing against his division rivals. Right? That's very clearly a point of emphasis in terms of how they build this team. Week 6, another primetime game against an NFC East team in New York against the Giants, Sunday Night Football. You think this one's maybe an upset? I mean, I could see Dexter Lawrence maybe doing some damage with Brian Burns.
It could. That duo could do some damage. I don't know if it's on upset watch. I'm not sure. Is Evan Neal starting? Get the checklist out. Is he starting at right tackle? Is Trey Hendrickson gonna have 3 sacks? We'll see. And this is the point of the season where he probably still is. I don't know. I just don't think this Giants offense is going to be good enough to
Well,
to really keep up with the Bengals.
again, going back to that corner theme, if the corners can't bounce back, I could see Neighbors potentially having. But I guess you just put Britt on him, and then what other option do the Giants have? So maybe not. If someone could establish themselves as a threatening two, though, I think that's when they could potentially take advantage of the rest of that secondary. If again they can't bounce back. Then we move over to Week 7, another division rival in Cleveland against the Browns. Where are you leaning with this one?
As it goes in the entire, well, no, not this time. Actually, I do think the Bengals are going to take both games because they have the receivers and the receiving core to take advantage of this Browns, press man coverage. Like Jamar Chase can go out there and do it. T. Higgins go out there and do it. I'm not saying their corners can't keep up with him, but it's damn hard.
They're bound to break one or two big plays,
Yes,
And
exactly.
we don't trust Cleveland's passing attack enough. Although, if we are continuing that theme that we're worried about the run game, even though I'm not, but you are, I think this might be a team that could take advantage of that.
Yes. This absolutely could be a team that could take advantage of that. So, we'll have to see. I would still lean. It's so hard to say a team with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback picks up a win against this Bengals team.
Yeah.
So I feel good saying the Bengals take both. And then you move to Eagles-Bengals. Should be a really fun game.
It should be. It should be. But this one isn't prime time. The other the other three NFC East games that they have, prime time. Not the Eagles game, though. Not the good one.
Not the team that hasn't even been talked about on our list yet.
Yeah,
you know
right. Yeah, Philly, I think they're damn good. I think they have an offensive line that might be able to take advantage of a defensive line that is, I think, a little bit better than pedestrian. Philly's rushing attack, I think, could do damage in this one. But again, I don't think that it's going to be able to do enough damage for them to win single-handedly off of it because of those two linebackers. That being said, Philly is a team that has depth at receiver. So again, I want to go back to my theme here. If the corners can't bounce back, you could only put Cam Taylor-Britt on one guy. A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. The other one, you're a little bit worried, maybe. Or maybe not, right? Maybe DJ Reed bounces back, right? Or DJ Turner, bounces back, performs, right? Could be what happens here.
Right.
I think that determines a lot of what happens on this game. You look at the Eagles' defense and how it matches up against the Bengals. I don't think it's an overwhelmingly good matchup on either side. I think both. I think it kind of is neutral.
I think it,
right.
Yeah, it definitely is neutral. My thing with the Eagles is, despite having a ton of talent on defense last year, for the most part, they still weren't very good.
Yeah, but now they have a Fangio.
But now they have Fangio. They have Fangio. But even with Fangio last year with the Dolphins, he was good, but very stubborn coordinator.
Yes.
Is able to adjust. Is able to adjust to this Bengals offense, and we're just gonna have to see.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you lean if you were to pick one? It's tough.
I want to say Philly. Because Philly, again, I think it's neutral in terms of how the offense for the Bengals matches up against the defense, but I think Philly has the advantage offensively.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with Philly. We move over to Week 9, Las Vegas. This one might be an upset watch, you think?
This one could be on upset watch, absolutely. And it kind of does come down again to how's this team's run defense? Because this Raiders defense is damn good, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a team that I think could give the Bengals fits with their defensive line. This defensive, Max Crosby's going to be back there real quickly, right? And Joe Burrow's going to – I know we say Joe Burrow's immune to pressure, and we mean it. That's going to be a lot of – there comes to a point when there's too much pressure. There's too much.
Well, it's also, okay, the pressure's coming quick. You got to get the ball out quick. And that's kind of what a guy like Jack Jones takes advantage of. I'm expecting a Jack Jones pick six at some point in this game. Right. It's just a question of, does that pick six win them the game, right? Or can the Bengals do enough offensively to still win? Because Jamar Chase is still Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is still T. Higgins, right? I feel all right taking the Bengals.
I do too.
Mm-hmm. Then we move over to Baltimore again. We kind of went over that matchup. You think this one in Baltimore, primetime television, how do you think that affects things?
I think this is potentially one of the games of the season here, but I have them splitting. I have Baltimore taking it at home. It just feels like there's not much analysis here from me other than like it's the AFC North. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rivalry. It just
Yeah.
feels like Lamar and them are going to pick one up.
Mm-hmm. Then the Chargers. Again, I think the run defense will hold up. I do.
Yes,
You
I
feel a
don't.
little bit
I think.
differently.
I think no. Yeah, I do feel a bit differently. I also just don't think the Chargers end up being that good.
Yeah.
So I feel I don't think it matters
I
as much.
also think
I don't know how they stop this Bengals
I
offense.
also
So
think, yeah, Minter being a blitz heavy coach isn't really going to help you here. Blitzing Joe
no.
Burrow doesn't work.
So
Uh,
I feel very okay
yeah.
saying that the Bengals win that.
hmm Then
Then
they
they
have
get
a
their
bye
bye.
week, and then they play against the Steelers in Cincinnati. First matchup against Pittsburgh. What are you thinking here?
I think the Steelers have the Bengals number for a lot of the time, but
hmm
just kind of sometimes don't have the offense to back it up. But I think the fact that Cincinnati's coming off a bye, I feel pretty okay taking Cincinnati here.
hmm Yeah, no, I completely get that. Uh, I do think Pittsburgh having kind of physical corners, I think that throws off the rhythm of a rhythm passing game. As a result, I'm leaning Pittsburgh. If a team were to win twice, it would be Pittsburgh, I think.
It'd be Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree.
Then they play against the Cowboys once again, primetime television, Monday Night Football in Dallas. What do you think here?
I actually have this as just a random Cowboys upset I have on
Yeah,
my
that
schedule.
that
I think it's just bound
listen,
to
the
happen.
Cowboys got to get some wins, right? And primetime television is kind of the time to do it against a big time quarterback. I could absolutely see it.
This feels like Micah Parsons,
Mhm.
insanity game.
Yeah, or even we talked about it, rhythm passing game. We expect this to be more of a physical group now in the secondary. Maybe that throws off the rhythm. Maybe we see Trevon Diggs pick. Very possible. Tennessee in Tennessee. What do you think here?
I think this is also kind of a tough game too because we talk about this should be a physical team with L'Jarius Sneed on it right now,
Mm-hmm.
at least in the secondary, right? He should be getting hands on. I think the secondary is good. I think their interior pressure is going to be good, which is the best way of getting to Joe Burrow with Jeffrey Simmons and them.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just how does this Titans offense look, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like if it's a good Will Levis, if we get a good Will Levis, the Titans offense could be average to above average. But we don't know that just yet, so it's hard to say.
I think that's fair, but at the same time, I don't have any trust that this run game will get going against this team. Truly, I think the Bengals are going to do a really good job stopping that, and as a result, the Titans kind of become one-dimensional offensively, and they can't really win that way against this team. Thursday night football against Cleveland. What do you think here? This game's in Cincinnati.
I think the Bengals are going to win both
Yeah.
of the Browns games. Yeah.
That's fair. Although again, the Browns getting that rushing attack going might.
Yes, very
Yeah.
possible. Very possible.
Then Denver in Cincinnati. What do you think?
Cincinnati's coming off a mini bye. I think I don't know how this Denver team stops Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Truthfully,
they don't have the pieces.
I
I
don't.
mean, Surtain might make it difficult for Jamar, but then you just throw it to T.
Sure, but then you just throw the T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then keep in mind, around now, Jermaine Burton might really be emerging. This could be a big Jermaine Burton game. And then Pittsburgh, we kind of already hit on. You think this one being
I
the
think this
last
one
week of the
goes
season
to.
changes much?
I think the Steelers. I mean, in my scenario here, the Steelers need to win a game to get into the playoffs. Feels like, oh man, Steelers are going to grit out a win against a division rival in the last week of the season, make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is all for this episode of our preseason power rankings, our preseason preview series. Thank you all for watching. This one will be going up on my channel, so don't forget to look down below at the link for Dino's channel because that's where he posts the odd numbers. I've been posting the evens.
I know I post the
I somehow screw it up every time. I don't know how. We're on the 26th episode, and I can't remember which ones go up on mine and which ones don't. If he didn't send me the thumbnails sometimes and then not send me the other times, I probably would have accidentally posted an even by now.
Yeah.
So thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.